Okay, so the other day I went to the thrift store and I found this beautiful scarf, and it inspired me to make a dress out of it. Since my suitcase got lost, I have to remake 3 of the dresses that I lost. So yeah, we're going to try to make one of this. I'm also sick today, so that's going to make this a lot more fun. Okay, so the first thing I did was want to match the colors of this, and everything that I'm going to be using is thrifted today. So we've got that scarf. This sheet matches the blue perfectly. We found this one, which has the lace trim, so I'll probably use that for straps as well as the bottom maybe. Then we have these linens, which match the light blue. I did get some yellow, but it's a bit too bright for this, so we're going to pass on that. And then I got this skirt, but it's a bit too small on me, but I love the green of it, and the gingham I think will add just a beautiful pattern to it. So it's going to be kind of a mixed pattern situation. And in the event that I do need more, we're going to piece together some of these beautiful items here. Yeah, so that is what we're going to do. We're going to try to make a patchwork style dress. Yeah, let's get going. So the next thing that I have to determine is, do I want it to have sleeves? I really like the idea of a puff sleeve, which again I could use this for because it's already got a finished edge to it. But I also love, if you look close, there's like little people on those. But I also love the idea of it being a summer dress with like tie straps, or just like, just straps over the shoulder. So I guess once I start making it, that'll maybe help me decide what I want it to look like. Because, let me show you what else I have that's not related to this item. So I also got this big duvet cover, which is 2-sided here. And this would make a beautiful puff sleeve. So I'm thinking I might use this for the puff sleeves. But yeah, it's like 2 pieces in one, which is awesome. All right, so now I'm going to get to cutting pieces out and piecing it together the way I think I want it to look in my head. So the part about this handkerchief or the tablecloth or whatever it is that I love, is this pattern here, but it's on the corner. So trying to make this come across, I mean, that looks okay. It kind of frames the boobas a little bit, which is nice. Yeah, actually I could do that. So then I would have that on the front and the back. And then the skirt would be made up of whatever's left over from this, plus those other pieces. The other thing that I was thinking was, what if oh, then it's upside down. Made it a triangle, like a halter-y style situation, but it's not quite wide enough. Nope, I think we're going to go this way. Yeah, that'll be cute. Okay, cool. So that's the first thing, is figuring out what I want the top to look like. And then from there, I'll put a little band and then have my skirt come out like this. I don't know if it's going to be a mini or maxi yet. I'm not a huge fan of maxi dresses, to be honest. I prefer them to be a bit shorter, like slightly above the knee, but we'll see what we can make happen. Okay, so next thing is we want to take our measurements, just in case anything has changed since the last time I worked on things. I'm also going to need my little kit here, so that way when I start pinning and whatnot, I'll have it. All right. Okay, so to take my measurement, there's two different things to keep in mind. Number one, I don't like to wear bras in the summertime if I can help it, and if I do, they're usually bralettes, so my boobs are hanging pretty low. So I want to keep that in mind when I'm taking my measurement, as opposed to if I had a bra, it might add a few inches to it. Now, because I'm plus size, I also have a broader back, and I want to compensate for that as well. So we want to go for the widest part of the boob. And then we want it to be taut, but not like uncomfortably taut, you know? Okay. So here it says we're at about 59 inches. And then from there, we're going to divide that in two to make the front and the back. Sometimes what I like to do as well is bring this in a bit smaller and then add panels in the side so that I can resize it if I need to bring it in or take it out without fucking up the fabric that I like. But we'll start here for now. So we're at 58.5 or 59. Okay, so 59 divided by 2, or you could just simply do this if you want. And that's the width that I need for the front and the back of my, for the back of the bodice of the dress. So I'm going to take that piece of fabric and cut out that width. So that ends up being what? 29. Now you do want to make sure, because we're going to be sewing it, you're going to lose a few inches on either side. So standardly you want to add a good 1 to 2 inches because that's going to be taken away from the hem or the seam. So we're going to add to that a little bit. Might as well make it an even 60. So we're going to cut out 30 inches across for the front and the back. Now again, the next thing we want to know is how long do we want the bodice to be? Do you want it a bit higher up, a bit lower down? How far down do you want it to come? Now the way my body is, I'm a bit what they would call short-waisted, I think, where my waist is pretty high, like basically at the bottom of my boobs, but I still need to make sure that the top goes over the chest. So I would like it to be probably about here. And we're going to measure down, down, down. Again, keeping a few extra inches because we're going to take it off once we sew it together. Because this is going to get hemmed. And this is also going to get cut in. So you want to make sure. I've done that before where I've accidentally made it quite short. All right, so we're going to go here. Probably, I'll start here and then I can always take it in. This is the thing. You can always take things in after you've done it. You don't have to play it safe. I always rather have too much fabric than not enough. So we're going to go to here, which is 10.5 inches. And if I remember correctly, that's usually what I would do anyways. So 10 by 30 is what we want here. Is that what you think, kitten? What do you think? 10 by 30? No? So we're just cutting it down. And hope we're getting it straight as can be. Again, this is how I do things, a little less tradish. Okay, so that means we have all of this, which is great, to use for the skirt. So we'll probably cut this into little panels, like doot, doot, and doot. So that way we can add that into the skirt for some, what do you call that, homogeneous? Yeah, whatever. All right, so now we've got this. So now we have to do the 30. But I think it's just over 30. Let's see, we've got it, oh, it's quite over 30, yeah, 36. So, maybe we just cut off the yellows and just work with that. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. So again, still a bit bigger than what we intended, but that's okay because we can always take it in once it's done. I'd rather it be too big and then I could take it in once it's all sewn. Okay. Now I do have a cutting wheel over there, but I don't have my cutting board because it's still packed away. So that's why I'm just freehanding with the scissors. Yeah, I feel confident that this will fit around. Beautiful. So the next thing I want to do with this is I need to make a lining for the other side of it. Because it's linen, it's kind of see-through. So if I was to just wear this while it be light, you might see some of my nip-nops, which we don't necessarily want all the time. So we're going to put a lining on it here, just one of the, maybe the green that I have to cover it here. So then, yeah, that way we'll sew it in. And that's a great way to make some seamless straps, which I'll show you how we're going to do that once we get to that point. So this green is going to be the lining of the top. I usually don't make a lining for the skirt, but that's just because I like as little fabric as possible. So I simply folded it over here, so when I cut it out, I'll just cut out two. So we're going to go like this. This is my quote-unquote measuring stick to get me the size that I need. And then we'll just trace around it with the scissors and cut that out. And again, it's okay if there's a little bit extra left over. Beautiful. So that's extra. We're going to cut this in half now. So my favorite thing to do is to get everything done up. Cut out all my pieces so I can piece it together to see how it's going to look. And then start the sewing process. I'd like to have all the pieces together. It's easier for my brain to kind of put the puzzle together if I can do all that. So we've got the top bodice part. Next we need to work on the straps. And then from there we'll construct the waist and the skirt. Okay, so one of the things that drives me nuts about buying plus size clothes is that they simply extend the pattern. They don't consider that a person's frame doesn't change, just the composition of their body does. Which means the larger the size you go in terms of your outfit, the further out your straps are going to be, which is why they tend to always fall off the shoulder. So for me, I will make sure that my straps are a bit closer into my neckline, so that way it feels tight and they're not going to move at all. So first we want to figure out how long do we want these straps to be. So I simply just like pull this down. And again, it's better to start too long than too short. To kind of figure out approximately how long do you want your strap to be. And I always make mine too long to start with. It's just how I am. And then I stop. And then I cut from there. So this is saying about 20 inches. So we'll start with that and then go from there. Okay, so when it comes to making straps, for me, I like to find linens that are already finished on the edges. So whether that's a piece of lace or in this case, a tablecloth that has the lace already attached, because then all I have to do when I cut this is sew in the strap part this way, but then it's got this cute little flourishy bit that I don't have to worry about putting in there. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to cut out two straps at, maybe we'll go 22 inches, so that way if I lose some, I'm not too upset about it. So we'll go to about there. We're going to cut out two straps. We're going to make this well, maybe 1 inch in from the lace seam to maybe... Yeah, because that itself, the lace itself is quite wide. So we'll probably get it so it looks like that. So that'd be a perfect strap for me, I think. There we go. So that's a cute little strap. So once I get the sewing machine going, then we're going to basically just sew that nice and tightly in. So we have a nice little strap like that. So now we just have to make a second one. And then the bodice stuff is pretty much done and we can get on to cutting out the pieces for the skirt. Beautiful. So we have two straps that we can now use. See? Boop, boop. Beautiful. Now, and look at all this fabric we have to help construct the skirt. That is going to be amazing. So we're going to put that up there with the top. I can see this coming together already and I'm super excited. Okay, so now for the skirt, we have to think about, do I want to do like this as a line across and then blue and then green? Or do I want to patchwork it where it'd be like cutting out little squares and kind of patchworking those together? Is kind of what I got to think about here for the next part. But essentially what we're going to do is make, starting with 3 levels. I might do more if I want to turn it into a maxi dress, but essentially 3 levels. Each one of rectangles, each one getting a little bit longer than the last one, just so it kind of gets that tiered look happening. So that's kind of what we're going for. All right. So I'm going to go take some more measurements and figure out what that is going to look like. Okay. So that's kind of the bodicey bit that's going on. Now we want to figure out what we want to do in terms of levels. So let's just get a few pieces and pretend that we're putting this out. So the first option I have, like I said, would be to create different levels. Well, that one's not long enough, of course. So we've got this. So that would be the next level down. I think that would look nice. Then we would maybe do a blue. So that would be the next level down. Then I would add that yellow in that we had before. And we might be able to, I don't know if I'm going to have enough to keep the lace on the bottom, but let's pretend for now that I do. So that's the first option, and that looks pretty freaking cute. So the second option, which I have, would be more patchworky, and I don't know how I'm going to show this, but essentially it'd be like part of that. That might be too much. I think we're going to have to go with this. I like this. So then we have this light blue that I wanted to use, but maybe it's, okay, hold on. Hello, kitten. Yeah? What? Excuse me. Oh, it's over there. I was just going to see if maybe the light blue, but I think the dark blue brings it together more. Okay, if we did 4 levels. What if we did 4 levels? Kitten says yes to that. Okay, so we did light blue, green. No, that's too much, I think. I mean, if I'm doing it as a maxi skirt, that could work. What do we think? Or do we just think the 3? Ah. I kind of like the light blue being in there, though, if I'm being honest. Because then we go blue, green, blue, yellow. Let me see. I may not even have enough light blues to do a full round. If I did, it would have to only be the top here. It would be the, like, under the bodice bit. Okay, so we're going to go like this. Na, 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 na. Boop, boop, boop. Yeah, like, I think that could look really pretty. What do we think? You guys are watching me do this in real time. Okay. Okay, so I think that looks really nice. You know what? We're going to freaking do it. Why not? Why freaking not? Now, if I was doing this as a skirt and top situation, then I probably wouldn't do that. I would just have this, and then a little tum could peek out. Hello, kid. So then the tum could peek out. But I think I like it as a dress. What do you think, kitten? Kitten agrees. It looked better as a dress. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to put this as the next layer. So we have to figure out how long we want that to be. Not too long, just like a few inches. And then go from there and cut out the rest. Yay! So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut all of these in half, so that way I can lay them out to see how wide that's going to be. If it's going to be the part that goes around my waist, I need to make sure that I have enough. Because if I don't have enough, then we skip the blue altogether and use it for another project another day. And that's totally fine, right, kitten? Kitten, what do you think? You think so? Yeah, you think so. Da-da-da-da. There we go. Okay. So, I think I have one more of those kicking around here. Yep, here she is, hiding away. So we're going to go ahead and lay those out and see how wide that gets. Because again, we want to take the width of this and make it at least 2 to, I would say, 4 inches wider, so that way we get that nice cupcake looking vibe. So 4 inches wider than this guy. So this is an old American Eagle skirt that we're going to cut up and use for the next layer of this. So basically, as you can see, I've laid it out here so they're a bit wider on each side. We need to do the same thing with this. It needs to be a bit wider than the light blue segment there. So I'm just gonna basically take off this part and see how long that is, and yeah, move it from there. If we need more, we have this, and we have the top that we could take apart as well. So there we go. That one's a bit wider than that, which is good news. So now we have to do the same with the blue and make it wider than the green one. And then I don't know that I'm going to have enough out of this guy to do an entire bottom, but I'm thinking this one we might patchwork with the other yellows that I have over there. So we'll see. I guess I could also make this one the next round and do blue at the bottom. I don't know, the blue in the center seemed to make more sense. Yeah, it does. We'll figure it out. We'll put yellow on the bottom, but we just have to figure out how. All right, so now we're going to move on to the dark blue here, and again, just extending it by a few inches past the green so we can continue our tiered effect. There we go. Okay, so first things first, we're going to straighten out our strappies so that way we can build the bodice and get on with that. So I'm just going to serge them, and then we're going to flip them over and sew them with the sewing machine over there. So this is just going to take a minute to get things sorted out. Now, here's the thing. I should probably care about my thread colors, but I really don't, especially for the serger. Oh, we're going to have to clean that out. A cutie little strap. Perfect. So now we just have to do the other one, and then our straps are done until we have to put them into the garment. So same thing, fold it inwards. Here we go. All right, we've now got 2 strappy-doos. Woohoo! So now is when we are going to form the bodice part. And what I like to do is do this in a few different stages. And for that, we are going to use the serger to start with. So let's do that. Okay, so now that I'm going to start sewing, we want to take our bodice and we want to just create a bit of a dip here, so that way this is where my arm will go. So usually I'll measure from the center of the fabric, like where my center of the fabric will be on my chest, to basically the top of my boob or armpit, and then do a steady slope of about 2 inches down to here. So that way it just creates a little nice gap for my arm to fit into. It doesn't, again, I don't do things like super specific, but I found that 2 inches tends to be. This helps me know that the straps are secured and in place and ready to go. And I'll usually have them peek out a little bit, which will get cut off. So again, this is why we had a few extra, inches or centimeters for that. So basically what we want to do now is go and zip it together and see what it looks like. Okay, so now we've got ourselves a little bit of a bodice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the mirror and quote unquote try this on just so I can see how it fits. And then see how much I need to take it in on the sides. So let's go do that. Okay, perfect. So we can see now how low or how high it's going to be on the sides. There we go. And so this is going to come over here. And so to this guy here. And so on. And I think that's actually a pretty perfect size. I'll know more once I sew the sides together. But I think lengthwise, it's actually perfect for me, for the length of my boobs. So if I find that there's still a lot of room here, we'll take it in once that happens. Okay, so now what we want to do is put the sides together so that way we can fully form the bodice here. So we're going to go ahead, take the right sides together, and we're going to serge this here. Like I said, you could have serged it before, but ultimately we're going to end up just cutting off most of this anyway. So so I usually will just save myself a step in doing that. So you want to pin this side together, same with the other side, and then serge that down. So now what we're going to do, we've got both sides done up. We're going to go try on the bodice to see how loose it is. And again, it's a summer dress. It's okay if it's a little bit loose, but let's go give it a go. Okay, so now that it's on, we can see that there's quite a bit of room on the sides here. So I'm going to want to take it in quite a bit, but as I mentioned earlier, I'm always better for it to be too loose than too tight, especially right at the beginning. So I'm probably just going to take it in like 2 inches on either side, and that should tighten it up a little bit for me there. So all we have to do is just measure in a little bit and then serge it down, and it's perfect. Okay, so we got it fit a bit better. As you can see, the top is still loosey here because that's just the way the body fits. But what we're going to end up doing is putting in like a little, I can't remember what they're called, like a little divot essentially, just where the chest goes, where the boobs go. It's just a half line here that creates a little bit of a rounded format for the dress. But that way too, you know what is the front and what is the back, which is kind of nice as well. Let's see, do we like it? This is the thing, you can always change it if you don't like it, you know? Oh, there's still a pin in there. We gotta take that out. But anyways, yeah, once we get our little boops and boops in, I think we'll be good to go and it'll be super cute. Yep. Cute. Okay, so where we want to put those little, I can't remember what they're called, but we're gonna measure out how far in we want them to go. So I think I'm going to do maybe 3 inches into the strap, which is where like the height of my breast would be. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to fold it in. Boop, 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 boop. Like so forth and such. And then we're going to put a little pin in it. And we're not going to sew the whole way down. We're only going to sew a little bit of it on a bit of an angle, so it creates just this little pocket for our boobie to sit into. All right, I took to Google and I found out that they're called darts. Yes, I knew that somewhere in my brain, but I forgot it. Yes, kitten? Yes. So we're going to create some darts to help us fit the top a bit better. That way too, it'll help us know what is the front and what is the back, which is obviously very important. Da, 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 da. Da, da, da. So what we're going to do is go a few inches in here, pinch the fabric to make our dart, boop, boop, boop. And essentially we're going to pin it in a way that kind of just comes down and off the edge. That's just going to create a bit of shape for the chest. Of course, everyone's different with their boobas, so you would want to, you know, do this based on your own. So I would say, I didn't even measure it, I'm just guessing based on other dresses I've made. But we're about an inch, say an inch and a quarter, inch and a half away from the strap, or like where the height of the center of my chest would be. So that'll give us a pretty good start anyways. And again, what you could do is do a basting stitch where it's just like one line. So what we would do is go here, we'd make it super wide strength, and just do one row of it just to see how it fits, and then you can always pull it out if you don't like it. So we'll do that. Oh, somehow I turned it to, well, it doesn't matter. We're just going to do that anyways and go off the edge, because I'm going to have to come back and sew it anyways. I ended up changing that by accident. All right. But this will let me see, do I like that amount? See how it makes that little pookie? Ba-ba. And then you would iron that, but again, do I iron anything? No. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and then I'll go try it on in the mirror to see how we like it more. Okay, so same kind of thing. Now this is where I would measure because I want this to be pretty even to the other side. I mean, it's just for you, so it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I'm just so like, whatever you want to do, it's totally fine. So again, we're going to kind of match it up here. Say 1.5 inches. Ba, 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 ba. Going to go like that, and we're going to pinch it and do the exact same thing. Boop, boop, boop. And then we want it to come down the same distance. So that one went pretty far, so we're going to go to about there. And you can mark that as well if you want. Just for your own safekeeping. Now we can see that that already fits a lot better across the chest. I might even tighten the straps a bit more, to be honest. Now that we pulled that in, they're a bit far to the side. But we'll keep going and see how it goes. So to tighten the straps, if I ever want to do that, basically I'll just cut it and then sew it together. Just like that. But yeah, I think that will be good enough. Again, I'm wearing a shirt right now, so it's a bit harder to tell. But because I have this like chubby bit back here, I like to have that extra space for my body to like freely move around, and I'm okay for it to be wider. I just don't want there to be like super big pockets here. But yeah, I think that would be sufficient. All right, on to the next, which is the rest of the outfit. Oh, I did make pockets, which I forgot to mention. I cut out some pockets, which are going to probably go in the, maybe the blue layer or the green, probably the green layer. I think they'll go in there. But yeah, now we get to put the pieces together. Yay! So the next part is really just assembling all the pieces together. So that way we can attach them as tiers. So I'm just going to spend a lot of time hemming, so I'm not even going to bother bringing you on that journey. But essentially, I want to make sure the top's hemmed, the sides are hemmed, or like the tops, the bottoms are hemmed, and the sides are hemmed. Well, especially for this one, because I got to attach them. And then once all the levels are ready, then we're just going to stack them and sew them together. That's it. So I'm going to go ahead and do all of this part where I get them all separate. All right, so we have all of our pieces hemmed and ready to attach to each other. And we're pretty much done with the serger, except for any last minute alterations we might need to make. So we're going to bust out this guy. Get our sewing machine going again so we can attach the pieces together. Now, what we want to do, I always start with the top one first, is you want to essentially attach each piece with a basting stitch. So this one we're not going to worry about, yeah, you know what, we're going to put it right onto the bodice here. There's like, you could do this in so many different ways, but we'll do it this way. So essentially what we want to do is have right sides together. So again, you want to flip your ring inside out here. And we're going to attach it on here. But you can see that it's significantly bigger. So how do we get that to fit? Well, we're going to take this piece and we're going to do a basting stitch, which is a long stitch that allows us to essentially pull it so it creates a little pucker in the fabric and allows it to fit the space that we have. So again, we want to make sure it's on a single line here. We can go a super wide length. Well, I think we're still good for bobbin. And I like to do it in sections just because sometimes the thread will snap and then you have to redo it anyways. So I'll do one this way. And then stop. And then I'm not double backing because you can see how it's already doing the little ruffly bit. And then I leave a lot of length so that way I have something to pull on when I need to make it just a little bit tighter. So we're going to do this for all the sections of this. Ta-da! I will say too, when it comes to different fabrics, you're going to want to just pay attention. I've tried, like when I just try different things, I've tried it before with like a thicker fabric and I made it too wide. So it was super bunchy and it broke so many needles and it just didn't look good at the end. So you want to keep that in mind. That's why I think like going with the 2 inches on either side length, like adding 2 inches on either side and tearing out from there is your best bet for how it looks. Yeah, that's at least what I found. 2 to 4 inches added to each tier helps it look so much better. So it's not just like a big bunchy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you get it. So now when it's time to sew the piece onto each other, or sew them together, you're going to want to make sure you reset it so it's not so loosey-goosey as it was in the last round. And my bobbin's doing a weird thing, but that's okay. And so we're just going to go ahead and attach this now. You can use a cross, like a zigzag stitch if you prefer, just if you have fabric that tends to fray. If you don't have a serger, you can do whatever. I'm going to use the sewing machine. Usually I would serge this, to be honest, but I'm going to go ahead and just use the sewing machine since I have it up. And you want to make sure, because of the serger threads, that it doesn't get caught in the footer, because that will happen in the foot. There we go. I think, is that sewing? Yeah, you're sewing. Okay, perfect. Keep it going. There we go. Keep it going. Now, I want to watch for that part. Remember where it was? This is the part, yes, where it's kind of off. So I want to make sure that I sew well over top of that just to make it attached. There we go. Oh, I think I'm stuck. Okay, so that level or tier is finished. So what we want to do now is just go ahead and cut off any loose threads. There's going to be a lot of them because of the base stitch. And I tend to find these threads well after I'm done the project. They just show up out of the woodwork because I forget about them. But, and I also don't really have an eye for detail. But anyways, let me quickly show you what it looks like. There, see? So you can see how it kind of comes off the side and it's all puckery and cutie. Oh, is there a pin in there? What? Something felt stabby. Anyways, okay. But this is what she looks like. So sometimes this happens where it will have pushed the ruffle through. But again, if you don't, you can go back and stitch rip that and fix it. I personally will not. Probably not until I put it on and see how it looks, in which case then I'll go back and fix it. But overall, not too concerned. So that's just level 1, right? So the next one we're going to do is the green one. This one has pockets. So we're going to attach it the exact same way. So that's all the next steps are going to be. So there's no point in me really showing you those again. But it's essentially the same thing. I'll put a base stitch in this, make it so it attaches to here, and then do that with the blue and then the yellow. And then the final step will be putting a hem on the yellow here. And then we'll see what it looks like from there, and then we can adjust anything we need to at that point. But so far, so good. She cute. She cute. Yeah, I like it. All right, moving on to the next layer. So now we're going to finish up with the hem. We've attached all the different layers. There's still a needle in there somewhere. And now we're just going to take this edge and fold it over so that way we have a nice clean hem on the bottom, as you can see here. Then once we're done that, we can try on the dress and see if we need any further alterations. Yay! Ta-da! She's all done. She's so cute. As it is, the straps they could have come in even more. That's what I'm saying. But it looks so cute. And I've got my little pocket. A nice little summer dress. Ta-da! So cute. So adorbs. Maybe with a nice little belt. Let's see what that looks like. Also, I chose this belt because of this color that's in there. It's kind of like a burnt brown, and so that's the closest I had. But yeah, when you can't find your clothes, make them.